Imagine a country where the government decided that alcohol was the greatest evil in society. They wanted to save families, reduce crime, cleanse America. But the exact opposite happened. Within just a few years, the United States transformed into a nation of underground bars, mafia empires, corrupt politicians, and bloody gang wars fought in the middle of city streets. It was Prohibition that made gangsters some of the richest men in America. It was during this era that modern organized crime was born. Names like Al Capone became legendary, but the most terrifying part was something else. The US government had created a monster that it would spend decades trying to control. Today we're going to uncover why America banned alcohol in the first place, how the Mafia made millions, why the police lost the war against organized crime, and how one single law changed the entire history of the United States. At the beginning of the 20th century, alcohol was everywhere in America. The saloon was the center of social life. Business deals happened there. People met there. People celebrated there. For many men, the saloon was a second home. But at the same time, alcohol was becoming a massive social problem. Domestic violence, poverty, alcoholism. In some cities, men drank away their entire paychecks. Women and religious organizations began a massive campaign against alcohol. They believed that if alcohol disappeared, society itself would become better. That's how the temperance movement was born. For millions of Americans, alcohol truly seemed like the root of every problem. And politicians noticed. In 1919, the United States passed the 18th Amendment. The production, sale, and transportation of alcohol became illegal. America entered the era of Prohibition. Politicians celebrated. They believed crime would fall, people would become healthier, and families would grow stronger. But they failed to understand one thing. Americans had no intention of stopping drinking. Whenever there is enormous demand, someone will always create an illegal supply. And that's exactly where the story of the Mafia begins. Alcohol didn't disappear, it simply became illegal. And because of that, it became incredibly profitable. A single bottle of whiskey could now bring in enormous amounts of money. A boom in smuggling began. Alcohol was brought in from Canada, the Caribbean, and across the ocean. Thousands of people became bootleggers. That was the name given to illegal alcohol dealers, and very quickly, small-time criminals began organizing into larger groups because huge profits required protection, and protection meant guns, corruption, and violence. Underground bars spread across the country. They were called speakeasies. In New York alone, there were thousands of them. To get inside, you needed a password. Behind hidden doors existed another world. Jazz, luxury, alcohol, gangsters. Ironically, Prohibition made alcohol even more popular. Now it was forbidden, and forbidden things became desirable. The irony was that many police officers drank in those bars themselves, and politicians accepted money from the Mafia. The system was beginning to rot from within. If Prohibition had a face, it was Al Capone, the son of Italian immigrants. A kid from a poor Brooklyn neighborhood. He started as an ordinary street gangster, but Prohibition made him unbelievably wealthy. Capone controlled alcohol smuggling, underground bars, prostitution, and gambling. He earned millions of dollars every year. In Chicago, everyone feared him. The police, politicians, rival gangs. In 1929, Capone's men disguised themselves as police officers. 7 rivals were lined up against a wall. Machine guns opened fire. America was horrified. Prohibition was supposed to stop crime. Instead, the country got a full-scale mafia war. And Chicago was only the beginning. Across America, gangsters fought brutal wars for control over alcohol routes, speakeasies, and entire neighborhoods. Every major city became a battlefield. New York, Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, Kansas City. Different gangs fought for territory like rival armies. The profits were so enormous that nobody wanted to share. Italian gangs fought Irish gangs. Irish gangs fought Jewish gangs. Former allies betrayed each other for power. Drive-by shootings became common. Thompson submachine guns turned city streets into war zones. Explosions destroyed warehouses. Bodies were found in alleyways almost every night. And ordinary people watched in fear as gangsters became more powerful than the authorities themselves. One of the bloodiest conflicts erupted between Al Capone's organization and the North Side Gang in Chicago. For years, both sides carried out assassinations, ambushes, kidnappings, and executions. Every killing demanded revenge, and every act of revenge triggered another cycle of violence. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre became the ultimate symbol of these gang wars. But it was far from the only massacre. Many shootings never even made national headlines because violence had become a normal part of everyday life. Some crime bosses survived only a few months before being betrayed or murdered. Trust barely existed inside the criminal underworld. Gangsters constantly feared informants, hired killers, and even members of their own crews. At the same time, competition forced gangs to become increasingly organized. They built international smuggling networks. They bribed customs officers. They bought politicians. They created hidden warehouses, secret tunnels, and coded communication systems. In many ways, Prohibition transformed street gangs into sophisticated criminal corporations. And the more money they earned, the more violent the competition became. The Mafia bought everyone: police officers, judges, mayors. In some cities, local governments practically worked for gangsters. Prohibition became a gold mine for corruption. Thousands of officials accepted bribes, and ordinary people slowly stopped respecting the law. Because when everyone breaks the law, it stops feeling like a law at all. That was the most dangerous consequence. America learned how to live in the shadows. People became used to bribery, lying to police, and supporting illegal businesses. And organized crime grew stronger every single day. By the early 1930s, the situation had become catastrophic. The government was losing billions in tax revenue. The Mafia was becoming more powerful. People hated the ban, and most importantly, alcohol had never disappeared. Eventually, the government had to admit the experiment had failed. In 1933, Prohibition was repealed. The 21st Amendment officially brought alcohol back. America celebrated. But it was already too late. Prohibition ended. But organized crime did not. The Mafia already had money, connections, weapons, and corrupt officials. They simply moved into drugs, gambling, and racketeering. In many ways, Prohibition created the criminal organizations that would survive for decades. And it became one of history's greatest lessons. When a government tries to ban something people desperately want, the criminal world almost always profits from it. Sometimes a single prohibition creates a problem far worse than the one it was meant to solve. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel. There are many more stories ahead about the Mafia, secret operations, the greatest scams in history, and the moments when government decisions changed the world forever. And let me know in the comments, do you think Prohibition was doomed from the very beginning?